Hi, I'm Faramid, and this is putting the no in monoculture, how and why to unite against uniform agriculture via education. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, what even is monoculture? Why should I care about it? And who are you to be telling me all these facts? Well, you're in luck, because I'm about to give you each and every single one of those answers. First and foremost, my major is ecology and biodiversity, and I'm from Sapulpa, Oklahoma. So crops and farmers is something that's kind of on my mind. So with that, I wanted to find any connections between agriculture, biodiversity, and our food systems. As such, I spent way too much time reading scientific papers. Now, monoculture. As the name implies, is when there's only one species of crop grown within a field. A very historic example of it and its effects is the Irish potato famine. And as I'm sure we all know, lots of people died due to how susceptible the crop was to disease, i.e., because of monoculture. Now, if you think that's just happening in the past, it's also here in the present with the Cavendish banana. If you've ever seen a banana in your life, it was definitely probably a Cavendish, as they account for nearly all of bananas globally sold, and they're susceptible to disease due to all of them being practically genetic clones of each other due to the fact that they don't have any seeds. Bad for them, good for us. Now, that happens because of a lack of genetic diversity. And the reason for that is because in nature, when there is a diverse range within the species, they can naturally overcome diseases due to some members being naturally resistant. And over time, that trait would become more and more prevalent within the species and therefore disease overcome. Now, without diversity, aka a monoculture, there's less variety and a smaller chance that said resistance can naturally occur. And even global trade makes our food systems more at risk due to the fact that pathogens can travel wide distances very fast and quickly target defenseless crop and wipe them out almost completely if they tried. And this goes even further because diseases can also naturally evolve to have resistances against any solutions that scientists create. And so, therefore, scientists have to constantly work towards creating artificial resistances like pesticides and herbicides to combat these issues, which, again, is because of monoculture. And it's not just plants affected, livestock is also affected, except for the added burden of public health. The reason for that is because their antibiotics are the same ones that we use as humans. And as mentioned before, bacteria can evolve. And as such, people are more likely to be harmed by dangerous bacteria due to the fact that the disease might already have a resistance. And it even goes further beyond disease. Pollinators, vital to food systems, as I'm sure we all know. Even such, here's an example. Almond groves in California account for about 80% of all of the world's almonds, and they use about 100 or 1.5 million colonies of commercial bee colonies, to pollinate their crop. And this ties to monoculture, as bees do best when in the presence of diverse fields. Less diversity, less bee abundance and richness, and in turn could drastically affect crop yield. And with some almond groves spending about $300 million on bee colonies, one would hope that they got the maximum yields out of all that spending. So I wanted to find out, why do we still use it? So I did some field observations with Netography to see what people thought online. And a big reason I found on places like r/agriculture on Reddit was due to the fact that monoculture is highly efficient, and it's easier to maintain with especially machinery. So, and monoculture will always practically outperform polycultures, which is when there's a diversity present. They're easier to manage, cheaper to manage, and so basically higher yields, and there more money is being made, higher profits, which is basically why it's the modern agriculture practice of today's world. And the problem with all of that is how, in the end, monoculture will be more costly for both farmers and consumers. As previously mentioned, scientists have to continually create artificial resistance, and which, of course, costs money and time. And it also costs money for farmers that they have to pay for something that could naturally occur within their crop. And the cost on the environment is also present. To learn even more, so I knew all the biology and the risks, and I wanted to know how to best combat it. So I sent out a lot of interview invitations, and I was fighting for my life to get one secured. Luckily, Paul Sutton was able to provide. So Paul Sutton is a professor here at DU who specializes in work centered around sustainability. He stressed the importance of something called ecological literacy, which basically, as the name implies, is when you know a lot about the environment and everything about it. So he spoke about how low it is, especially within those whose main source of info is social media. And it's important because without it, we can't make informed decisions on how to be as sustainable as possible. Along with that, he brought up the previously mentioned point of how economics is always put into play and how monoculture is so prevalent because of how efficient it is. But as he put it, if you don't have an environment, you don't have a society, ergo, you don't have an economy. And in turn, creating solutions is very important. Now, what could you do about this? Well, as Sutton puts it, education is key. So, as Paul Sutton has tried to be able to raise awareness within DU by getting some environmental presses out, but it would be more possible with more students helping. And to do that would be a first year seminar. Now, to get a better understanding of how beneficial this policy would be, I interviewed Mia Jackson. Mia is currently a student in Sutton's sustainability class, and she majors in environmental science. She expressed her gratitude for her major, as she feels very well informed and can get an accurate understanding of what's happening. Something that DU could do would be have a freshman orientation activity. They could have groups together and discuss what they do currently know about monoculture or even just the environment in general, and then come together even more to discuss where they were right and wrong and be properly educated about all sorts of things monoculture, the environment, and everything.
If you think this would all be for naught and that change is impossible, you are so, so
10
wrong.
to 15 years ago, nature-based solutions and like were ridiculed and sometimes even called hippie shit, as Paul Sutton recalls. But nowadays, such practices are commonplace. By educating the future leaders of the world, aka freshmen, we can strive for a more sustainable and secure food system.